July 7th through 10th, Fan Expo Chicago is taking place at the Donald E. Stevens Convention Center. The biggest stars in movies, comics, and TV shows are all going to be here. And of course, one of the stars we're so excited for, Brian O'Halloran, is going to be here, of course, for the 90s cult film Clerks. He's going to be here alongside Kevin Smith, Jason Mewes, Jeff Anderson, all stars from the original film. Thank you so much for joining me today, Brian.
Oh, thank you for having me, Rudy. It's great to be talking about Chicago, one of my favorite cities.
This is the first time that you and Jeff are actually going to be like in the Chicagoland area doing one of these together.
Correct. I go to Chicago once a year on business, but as far as like conventions, I think the last time I was in the Chicagoland area was in Schaumburg for a Days of the Dead convention in either 2017 or 16 or something like that. So it's good to be back.
That's awesome. So let's talk a little bit about Clerks. We're almost celebrating the 30th anniversary of the film. At what point did you, Kevin, Jason, Jeff, did everyone kind of know this was not just going to be a film that people were going to associate it with that year, but it was going to be an iconic film that people were going to talk about for decades later?
It took a while for it to catch on. I mean, when it first got released in October of '94, it really didn't have a following at all. I mean, people didn't know who this filmmaker was. We knew in January of '94 that it might have been something because we went to the Sundance Film Festival to sell the film in January of '94. And we had 4 screenings, 4 of which all sold out, which is kind of unheard of for an unknown filmmaker. And it was the buzz of like, wow, this really speaks to this generation kind of film. And it wasn't until even after the film got edited and then put out for release in theaters in October of '94, and then made its rounds in theaters. It only made $3 million in the box office, but I mean, the film was only bought for 250,000. So the return on investment for the Miramax company was huge. But then when it got to the video rental arena, kids, ask your grandparents what the video rental arena is. It's not just on your TV, just going, I want to get that. You went down to a store physically to get your VHS tape to watch the movie. That's where we started to see more of this kind of, you got to watch this movie, man, kind of passing it around to different people renting it. It was always out for being rented in stores. And we heard from owners saying like they couldn't keep it. They just couldn't keep it in. And as a matter of fact, me and Jeff were once at a conference of video store retailers and owners where the one of the heads of Blockbuster came over to our table and said, you know, your movie's one of the most unreturned and stolen videos in our chain. And I was like, well, that's our fan base, a bunch of cheap thieves. Do you want 20 more pieces? So it was that kind of thing where we kind of knew that the buzz was starting to pick up about it.
Let's talk a little bit about the friendship between Randall and Dante. As far as you and Jeff, over the years, I mean, this is almost like a brother or best friend that you've gained, throughout your life. Talk a little bit about your friendship, either kind of getting ready for that first movie and, as we can prepare for the third one to be released, Clerks III.
Sure. I mean, when I got involved with the first Clerks, I auditioned as an extra. They were holding auditions at the First Avenue Playhouse in Atlantic Highlands, New Jersey, which is the town right next door to where Kevin and his friends grew up. So I was doing community theater in the local, central New Jersey, New York City off-Broadway scene. So I just auditioned for him, and luckily he liked what I did, even though he had already cast the role of Dante to one of his friends. He's like, you know what? I think this guy could probably pull it off a little bit more what we're looking for. And so that's how I became Dante in the original Clerks. So when I met Jeff for the first time, it was for a read through of the script. We went to the actual store to have a read through after the store closed of the script. And I loved his texture of his voice. I love his reading of the lines. Now, he wasn't an actor. He was just a friend of a friend who went to audition, and he grew up with Kevin, meaning he went to high school with him and stuff and knew him. Like, he literally went to the video store when Kevin worked at the video store, and then Kevin would recommend, oh, you should watch this movie. So that kind of friendship they had. I was new to this whole scene of their neighborhood, and we clicked. We got along, and we spent a month rehearsing the first film. And then when we came back to do the cartoon series and then come back again to do a Clerks 2, that was the kind of thing where we were like, wow, this really, it is something that we hadn't seen each other in quite a few years, because he had moved to LA. I had lived in LA for a little bit and then moved back to the East Coast to work more on the East Coast. That even with the distance, when we would ever get back together, that kind of simpatico kind of relationship was there. And even as we've been on the road now at these fan expos, especially, it's just the friendship has developed even more and more. And of course, shooting Clerks 3 was just a joy to do. It's heavy lifting on Jeff's part. It's more of a Randall story, Clerks 3. So I look forward to seeing what the fan base thinks of how the relationship has grown over all these years.
I do want to talk a little bit about friendship because obviously for a generation of people, Sex in the City was, people were like, I'm a Carrie, I'm a Miranda. But for another, generation of people, they were like, I'm the Dante, I'm the one I wasn't even supposed to be here today. And then you have the Jeff who's maybe a little bit more carefree. Did you get a lot of people comparing, especially when they come to these fan expos and like, I'm totally a Dante, I can totally see myself, as this character kind of being put in these situations that like he wasn't originally supposed to be a part of?
Right. It's funny because when Facebook was first starting out, and you would see these kind of take your quiz, your Star Trek quiz, which Star Trek character are you? Which, Star Wars character are you? Which Lord of the Rings? And as you said, Sex in the City. And there was one for which, Clerks or View Askew character are you? Which encompassed all of Kevin's View Askew films. So it's funny, whenever we go to these conventions, we get a lot of questions like, are you even supposed to be here today? They always say to me, but we get a lot of things like, oh my God, you guys should do a movie about this, garage. These guys that work in a garage, they're just like you guys. Oh, you should hear the stuff they say. That kind of stuff we get pitched all the time, which we are always like, that's for you to make. We made our, blue collar working job movie. Y'all take it from here. So it was funny that we hear that a lot, that, oh my God, I got this friend, he's totally a Dante. Or even when two friends come up to our tables, they're like, oh, he's totally the Randall, and oh, he's totally the Jay. And this guy, don't even talk to him. He's the Silent Bob of the group. So there always has been this kind of like, we totally relate. And I think that's the key to why this film was such uh, a linchpin for a lot of people to enjoy seeing themselves, or seeing a realistic kind of portrayal of either employees that work this type of environment every day. Either you worked this kind of crappy service job, or you've been in an establishment and were treated like crap because of the employees could care less. Just because they serve you, as they say, doesn't mean they like you. So that kind of feeling resonated with so many people, and it still does even today. Even though, yes, there's no more real video rental stores out there, it doesn't make a difference. It could be, a dispensary of weed as opposed to a video store. It's the same kind of attitude where people are like, oh, I'm not even supposed to be here today, kind of thing.
Because what I think about the first couple times that I saw the movie is, you remember your first jobs, and sometimes I was really into Star Wars. I still am, but you would seek out that other employee and just have hour-long conversations about different films. And now you can do that online and find your different groups or different pages that you follow. But there you really had to seek out the conversations and the friendships you have. And it's pretty cool because my first job was at a movie theater, and those friends that you had those conversations with for hours at a time while you're waiting for customers, they're still your friends. I mean, there's something about that special bond at that time of when you communicate with people that like you still share decades later.
Oh, absolutely. I have a circle of 5 to 7 friends that I've known since high school that we still hang out and we still talk about. And we have we have like a WhatsApp thread that we talk about many different subject matters, like Obi-Wan and all this other stuff that's going on. And it's that kind of conversation, because it really does happen. People have their, strong opinions about how certain, especially in the TV and film industry, and even music for some part, where they think I've been a fan for over 30 or 40 years. This is where this should go. And everybody has their great opinions about it. Even with the Clerks, View Askew universe, where these characters should go, we hear it all the time. And so that's what Kevin was around. That's what Kevin did. So, the best people say, like, if you want to write something, write what you know. And this is what he did. He worked at the Quick Stop. He worked the video store. He had a friend, Brian Johnson, that Randall is based on, who would ask the most bizarre questions, or could care less that he would talk in front of customers about subjects you really not safe for work, as they would say. So that type of thing Kevin put down. He had never seen that in a movie. And people really was like, oh my God, I totally do this. Oh my God, Frank totally does it. Or Susan is totally that girl who's trying to change her boyfriend, that kind of thing.
I was watching an interview with Matthew Broderick the other day, and he was saying that, for the past 35 years, wherever he's walking in an airport or a restaurant, someone always comes up to him and is like, is it your day off? he's like that. Ferris Bueller has always come up. It's almost like a two-part question, but as far as like, you're not supposed to be here today, 37 in a row, is there something that always gets shouted out to you, and like maybe the most random place where you might have encountered a fan?
Listen, it's always, are you even supposed to be here today? There's always that question. That's going to be something that'll be on my tombstone, I'm sure. Here lies Brian O'Halloran, born December 20th, 1969. Whenever I pass away, he's not even supposed to be here today. It may give people a chuckle if they want to visit my grave. But at the meantime, though, yes, it's that type of thing, and I get away kind of scot-free with those kind of things. I feel bad for some of the things that are shouted at, like Marilyn Gigliotti, who plays Veronica in the movie, or even Randall. Randall it gets asked, to do the Wrangler, walk kind of saunter to, or to, he gets barraged by the whole Lord of the Rings trilogy versus Star Wars trilogy kind of banter back and forth. So it's great, in a way, to be known with a catchphrase or slogan. It's something that'll go on forever. And like I said, if it's just people asking me if I'm supposed to be there today, I can live with that. I've been living with it over nearly 30 years now. I can live with it a little longer.
You can live a little bit longer. During the pandemic, there was the movies pop up. Kevin was coming through different cities. He came to Chicago to come promote. Him and Jason were here, but they had the sign that said, "I assure you we're open." And we had a conversation as far as like that, what that meant, especially during the pandemic when a lot of businesses were closed. A lot of people, took their Clerks fandom to that level, and were like, "I assure you we're open."
Well, it's so funny that you say about the "I assure you we're open" sheets and signs and spray painted on. Whenever there's a hurricane of some sort or a tornado and people are boarding up for that kind of thing, I always get, tagged on my Twitter or Facebook or Instagram accounts, with the photo of their local town, whatever, convenience store, gas station, with either the spray painted, "I assure you we're open" onto, wood that's covering the windows, or sheets that are hanging from something that may have been in a town that had some sort of disaster, where people have that spirit. And yes, I saw it all through the pandemic when people, especially restaurants and bars that just did takeaway menus as opposed to dining inside to stay alive, with the "I assure you we're open." I see it on, sandwich boards outside of bars. "I assure you we're open. Come in for, a drink special," whatever it is. So I love the fact that the fans embrace the writing, and the writing is that the star of the movie really comes down to Kevin and his writing. He really just was able to grasp this type of writing, this kind of language, this voice of this kind of generation, and our kind of thing daily, our daily conversations, and put it to a movie that people enjoyed.
That's amazing. And then final thing here, as far as the View Askew universe, Rosario Dawson, Jennifer Lopez, Ben Affleck, Matt Damon. I mean, so many amazing stars. I mean, do you ever take that moment to like take a step back and like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I'm part of this universe, and it just has gotten so big, and it means so much more than just, movies that are on maybe someone's shelf or, in their Netflix queue?
Absolutely. I mean, I've been very blessed to have been to know and work with Kevin Smith, and that we get along so well that he allows me to be a part of his other films as well. And other people appreciate his films, that he's been able to bring in people he admired to work with, that I got to meet and hang out. And like, one of my all-time favorites is George Carlin, who played Cardinal Glick in Dogma. I just loved that man beforehand, just like Kevin did. And to have him and work with him and talk to him was just an amazing experience. Alan Rickman, another one, just these giants of actors who were just amazing, just people to talk with and hang out with. Mark Hamill, so many people who are just so great. Alanis Morissette, like, the list goes on the people that Kevin has been able to fool into working with him. That was really, really, really cool. And Ben, like, especially Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, those two guys, I mean, talk about absolutely having their heads on a swivel when it comes to picking the right projects for themselves, producing the right projects to work in, and stuff like that. It's kind of funny that all the way back from 95 until now, the growth of so many people that I've been able to work with and been a part of has just been a complete blessing. And I do treasure those memories, and treasure when I see these people from time to time. Just, hey man, it's good to see you again. Especially Rosario Dawson coming back for Clerks 3 was just a joy to work with her again.
That is amazing. Brian, thank you so much for your time today. July 7th through the 10th, Donald E. Stephens Convention Center. FanExpoHQ.com is where you can go ahead and get your tickets. You can also purchase meet and greets. There's going to be autographs, so plenty of times to go ahead and meet Brian. He's going to be here Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and I can't wait to see you here.
Good to see you, Rudy. Hope we'll see you at the show in July.
We will. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Rudy.